Since the beginning of this year, I've constantly been hearing negative things said about my hometown of Memphis, Tennessee. Like way more than usual, from the FBI director all the way to Stephen A. Smith. And it seems like it has been a smear campaign being spread because personally, I've never seen the city being casted in such a negative light to this degree. Maybe there has, and I'm just not paying attention to it. But it seemed like for 3 months, once a week, I just saw article after article about my city. And the breaking point was really Stephen A. Smith. These days, I really don't care what he has to say, but if you're going to lie, at least say something basketball related. The thing that really annoyed me is the media narrative. And I'm not even trying to be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but once the media pushes a certain narrative, most people are going to take that as fact. So when you keep hearing about something, whether that be right or wrong, or just plain old fear mongering, people are going to end up believing in it. And it is hard to shake that negative reputation. So when you have Stephen A. Smith saying NBA players are scared to come in Memphis, people are thinking that you can't look at nobody without getting or something. People are going to believe that. And I just wanted to give people insight on what's really going on. I was going to make a separate video about xAI and what it is doing. And just for the record, just in case anybody asked, I am from the suburbs. I mainly grew up in Cordova, but I did move around the city a few times. And just to already answer people's questions, because I'm one step ahead, just because I am from the suburbs doesn't mean I can't talk about the Memphis experience. And I'm sure mine is going to be different from somebody else. Shoot, you can ask 5 different people and they will all experience something else. But just because something didn't affect me personally doesn't mean that I shouldn't care. I want better for my city and the people in it. Now that the opening is done, let's talk about the crime rate. Memphis is known for 2 things: barbecue and, unfortunately, crime. Yes, there is crime here, and some of it is blown out of proportion. So, when you have the FBI director calling Memphis the murder capital of the US, I was like, okay. First of all, Memphis doesn't even have the highest homicide rates in the country. That actually goes to Jackson, Mississippi, then Birmingham, St. Louis, then it's Memphis. So at least be right when you want to give out nicknames. Second, the major crime has gone down around 17% year to date. And this is all before the National Guard has even arrived. Even in with them coming here, that's just over policing. And that is not going to help with crime, but worsening it due to it increasing the economic struggles. To fix crime, you have to reinvest resources into that community. If you look at Baltimore and what they did, they invested into youth programs and crimes fell 30%. And Trump still wants to send the National Guard to them. But anyways, so crime has gone down so much so that the state lawmakers want an audit to prove that crime is down. They basically said, we don't believe these niggas. And why would that hold such a surprising reaction? Shouldn't the state be happy that the second biggest city is doing better? At least give us a backhanded compliment. And if you ask me, the state wants to keep us down. We're a majority black city in a blue county in a red state, which basically gives them no incentive to want to help us. And I'm really not going to put anything past the state of Tennessee, especially when it comes to that, because their biggest historically black college and university, and my alma mater, Tennessee State University, has been revealed to be underfunded by the state for over 30 years. And TSU should have received $2.1 billion with a B more funding during those last 30 years. And there have been no efforts to repay them at all. So that really doesn't surprise me when our lawmakers struggle to pass bills, or those bills don't get hearings unless they align with the Republican interests. Shelby County doesn't get the leverage compared to the other counties when it comes to influence or favor when it comes to laws or funding. Many of the bills that we tried to pass end up getting blocked. It also doesn't help the fact that the state tries to threaten to withhold funds from us, essentially trying to force Memphis to comply with the state. And this is why there's this joke that Memphis is Mississippi's biggest city, because we're behind the 8 ball in 2 different ways. And it doesn't help that we are underfunded, or at least underinvested by the state of Tennessee in certain areas, especially compared to other cities. I'm not saying I'm for or against taxes, but if we want to raise the taxes to improve infrastructure, as an example, we have to get the state's approval. So how is Memphis expected to improve when we barely have any room to work with? We had to vote to pass a gun referendum, and the state wants to threaten withholding state funding. It's obvious that we have our own problems that we need to work out, and we can barely get any local autonomy without the state's interference. So it is harder for us to tackle crime and poverty, which are related. Memphis is disenfranchised and marginalized within the state of Tennessee. We are not represented in the Republican-controlled state, and you can tell there is economic disparities, even when it comes to the state revenue that we generate compared to the return on the state investment, leading to underfunding and economic neglect due to Memphis not being politically aligned with the rest of the state. When you have one of the highest poverty rates in the country, and we're going to have to go all the way back to Jim Crow if we really want to tackle that issue, especially due to systematic racism. And the reason people in poverty commit crimes is due to desperation, especially when you are out here trying to survive. That's why in these low income areas, there is more crime. And also in these low income areas, they tend to not have the best education, which feeds to the schools to prisons pipelines. Jails are being built from 3rd grade scores. And ever since Memphis City Schools and Shelby County Schools mergers happened, which led to the forming of other school districts like Bartlett City Schools or Germantown City Schools, more money is being sent to those districts instead of Memphis Shelby County School Districts, which houses some of those inner city schools. So when you're in poverty and not receiving the best education while being exposed to crime, you're more likely going to commit those crimes. So now, when I overlay these 2 graphics with the poorest zip codes and the zip codes with the most crime, do you see the relation between them? And there's a lot of poor areas in Memphis. And it doesn't help the fact that a lot of jobs that we have here are FedEx, Nike, or an Amazon that are low paying jobs, and those jobs aren't designed to help you accumulate wealth to get out of this economic struggle. Or you have these companies that move here that promise high paying jobs and promise to put jobs out, and they just straight up don't. And those same companies receive tax breaks, and they very rarely leave a financial impact on Memphis. And speaking of jobs being brought here, let's talk about xAI. I've wanted to make this video for so long, and why not make a 2-in-1 video? Because every time I hear about Elon Musk or xAI or someone using Grok, it honestly pisses me off. He is taking advantage of Memphis. He is poisoning communities in South Memphis, using a lot of power, putting a strain on a local grid, and then using 1 million gallons of water a day. I know there have been videos on socials about xAI's turbines, but there's actually a lot more than that. I'm so against harming the environment, and then you want to add environmental racism into the mix. I just have to speak out against that. What Elon Musk is doing and getting away with is not acceptable. First of all, the announcement came out of nowhere. Then 6 months later, xAI was online. And if you ask me, this had to have happened under the table because this all formed in such a super short timeline. Now it's been running, it's been using unpermitted gas turbines that is polluting the air in South Memphis, a community that already struggles with respiratory issues such as asthma, worsening the air quality tremendously and basically putting carcinogens in the air. Elon only has permits for 15 turbines, but he's using 33, which is emitting up to 21 tons of nitrogen oxide, making it responsible for 30 to 60% of the smog in Memphis. I know the NAACP has made an appeal about granting the turbines permits due to violating the Clean Air Act, but nothing has happened yet due to it going through the legal process. But I know it's not going to stop there. because there's already new turbines being built on top of another facility. Being built, of course, in lower income areas. A few turbines will be placed, if they haven't already, in between Mitchell High School and Alonzo Weaver Park. And a new facility will be right across the street from TVA, which supplies them the power. On top of the fact that TVA is building them new turbines. And I would know this because the job I work for, TVA is one of the customers, and I see the construction of the new site and I see the construction of the new turbines. But this is a clear example of environmental racism, because why are you putting pollutants in the air in these lower income areas? Because you know their voices aren't going to be heard compared to those voices that will be in Collierville or Germantown. This isn't the first time that companies have done this. You can look at Cancer Alley in Louisiana, the water crisis in Flint, Michigan, and Jackson, Mississippi. This is no accident that this stuff always occurs in major black communities. And speaking of water, xAI is using 1 million gallons of water per day. And that ain't coming from the Mississippi River either. It's coming from the sand aquifer, which is the groundwater that we rely on, which is straining the resources on top of other companies letting mercury and other chemicals being absorbed into the ground. And this causes breaches. And how this aquifer works is rainwater is absorbed into the ground beneath several layers of rocks and other minerals, but it takes time. Sure, it is able to be recharged with rain, but we might not be able to see the effects of what's happening today due to the trickle-down effects. And I wouldn't be surprised, but I would be very upset. Come in 10 years, our water is contaminated. Especially because we have the best water in the country, and this is not an opinion. And 2, they're not going to care. I will say that xAI is trying to open up a gray water facility to reduce the strain on the aquifer, but I need to see it in place first. And what's crazy is it's sure taking a long time for Shelby County to approve of this water facility than the actual supercomputer. And another thing, why wasn't this already in place before xAI was commissioned? Just millions of gallons of water every day for the last 18 months. This is on top of them using so much electricity that they have enough power to power over 100,000 homes. I bet y'all are right next door to TVA. There was already a problem 2 winters ago when it seemed like the entire county had rolling blackouts on the weekends for about 2 weeks. And this is why I get highly agitated when I see people posting their raggedy grunk pics or bots under posts adding grunk for the most Googleable questions. And this all leads to the detriment of my city. Because when it is all said and done, who knows the effects this is going to have long term. And I really think Elon is just bending Memphis over, or the state of Tennessee for that fact, now that he's announced a tunnel from the Nashville airport to downtown only for Tesla vehicles, despite geological concerns. And of course this isn't going to help the residents, it's only for his gain. I just want to end this video off shining a spotlight on my city, and I didn't want it to be all negative. I'm gonna be honest here though. We aren't the most flashiest city by any means, but we are rich in culture and soul. We have an amazing art, history, music, and food scene. There's a ton of museums to visit along with a lot of parks and outdoor areas. Beale Street is always fun. I'm so glad iShowSpeed was able to come here and really show how unique Memphis actually is. And it showed the positives that the cities had to offer, despite what the media wants you to believe. If you show the city love, it will love you back. We are loyal to those who show love. And even to get back at Stephen A. Smith's point, if Memphis is so bad that nobody wants to play here, then why do we have 3 former Grizzlies players who still live here? Even outside of the basketball aspect, many players outside of Chandler Parsons enjoy being here even though it's a small market. In conclusion, Memphis is not as bad as the stats seem, especially because most of the violent crimes here are gang related, and if you are a regular Samaritan, you aren't going to run into any issues really. There is no type of fear mongering that will make me hate Memphis, and I will always be glad to call this city my home. So to make a long story short,
how can you deprive us of resources and then tell us the only solution is military occupation. We need poverty eradication, not military occupation. And so Donald Trump, Governor Bill Lee, and every elected official in Memphis and Shelby County who want to ride with them, we